At around 11:30 p.m. on September the 20th of 2022, New York City man Edwin Pedroza fatally stabbed a man who had confronted him about his manners. A witness said that the victim, 37-year-old John Nunez, opened the door of a tobacco store in Gowanus, Brooklyn, for Pedroza and asked why he hadn't gotten a thank you. The suspect responded that he hadn't asked anyone to open the door for him. Later on, they moved the dispute outside the store on 4th Avenue and President Street, where it escalated into a physical altercation. According to authorities, 42-year-old Pedroza used a knife to stab Nunez in the abdomen and neck before fleeing on an e-bike. Nunez was then rushed to Brooklyn Methodist Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The victim's mother said that she couldn't believe what had happened to her son, all due to a dispute over bad manners. 1 month later, the suspect was arrested within the 78th precinct and charged with manslaughter and criminal possession of a weapon. Number 7. Wilson Patricio Chava. A dispute over a parking spot left a man in critical condition when a couple, 27-year-old Daisy Barrera and 30-year-old Arturo Cuevas, assaulted him in broad daylight on March the 17th of 2023. The couple stabbed 28-year-old Wilson Patricio Chava 5 times and hit him over the head with a baseball bat near 47th Avenue in Sunnyside, Queens, New York City. The victim was then taken to Elmhurst Hospital Center. The Chava family attorney, Pablo Bustos, said that he couldn't talk or move. He added that there would probably be permanent damage due to the severe brain trauma, which required brain surgery. He also stated that the victim's girlfriend had been struck with the bat when she attempted to stop the attack. Chava was the sole provider for his family, according to his mother, who demanded justice. The suspects were then arrested and charged with second-degree attempted murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon. The district attorney said that given the viciousness of the assault, she had asked the court to keep Barrera and Cuevas in custody prior to their trial. CBS News reported that the pair had planned to plead not guilty. Number 6. Juan Gutierrez and Maricela Onorato. 29-year-old Joshua Lee Wells gunned down a couple near Drake Park, Long Beach, California at around 7:50 p.m. on September the 4th of 2021. According to Press Telegram, moments before the incident, the couple, 39-year-old Juan Gutierrez and 44-year-old Maricela Onorato, had argued with a person while they double parked. Concurrently, Wells, who was nearby, had gotten into a fight with another unnamed individual. Gutierrez intervened to stop the altercation and lost his keys in the process. The suspect, who lived nearby, left and roughly 10 minutes later returned with a gun and shot Gutierrez. Onorato then came out of the vehicle and was also gunned down by Wells. The man died at the scene and Onorato was transported to a nearby hospital where she later passed away as well. According to federal officials, the gunman fled to Iowa, where he was later arrested in Windsor Heights on September the 16th of 2021. In mid-October of that same year, Wells was extradited to Long Beach. A month later, he represented himself in court and pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. On January the 6th of 2022, he was sentenced to 70 years to life in state prison. The deputy district attorney commented on the motive behind the double murder, saying, "To this day, we still have no idea." One of the victim's daughters told the judge that her loved one had been killed in a most cruel way and added that Wells was worse than a monster. Number 5. Alexandria Boris. 26-year-old Alexandria Boris was murdered during a busy day at Kroger grocery store in Irmo, South Carolina on Valentine's Day of 2023. At around 3 p.m., the victim, who was with her baby and another young child, was putting groceries away. She then got into an argument with 23-year-old Christina Harrison over who had the right-of-way in the Kroger parking lot. According to witnesses, the two exchanged some words before Boris spat at Harrison. When the former turned away, she was shot in the head by the other woman and died at the scene. The shooter then fled in a white Ford sedan. At around 5:30 p.m., Harrison turned herself in and was charged with murder, unlawfully carrying a pistol, and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. She was held in custody at the Lexington County Detention Center. A statement from the police department concluded that a rash decision had affected the lives of families and countless others who were witnesses to the tragic event. Number 4. Ross Hulis. At around 9 p.m. on Valentine's Day of 2020, 28-year-old Ross Hulis was beaten to death for selling a pair of purported Apple AirPods on a suburban Wakeley street in Sydney, Australia. Prior to the attack, 27-year-old Sammy Hamdak had bought the item from Hulis for $150 and believed it was fake. In the aftermath, he told his girlfriend to arrange an after-dark meeting with Hulis, where another pair of AirPods would be sold. During the meeting, he was ambushed by Hamdak and another man, 26-year-old Abdul Karali. A CCTV camera captured the incident as Hulis was kicked in the head and stomped on. People who passed by stopped and checked on the victim's welfare, at which point the perpetrators told them that they were looking after an intoxicated man. Later, Hulis was left to die by the attackers. He suffered a catastrophic brain injury and passed away in a hospital within 3 days. On March the 16th of 2023, Corrali was found guilty and was scheduled to face a sentence and hearing in a few months' time. On March the 31st of 2023, Hamdak pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a total of 16 years and 2 months with a 12-year non-parole period. According to the judge, the motivation behind the cruel attack was trivial. The mother of the victim said that a longer sentence would have been more adequate, although she accepted that it wasn't going to bring her son back. Number 3. Stephen and Jennifer Chappell. In Somerset, England, on November the 21st of 2021, a couple were found gravely injured at their Norton Fitzwarren home and later died at the scene. Police believe that the couple, 36-year-old Stephen Chappell and his wife Jenny, aged 33, were murdered over a parking disagreement with their neighbor that had occurred weeks prior. Just minutes after the attack, at 9:45 a.m., 35-year-old Colin Reeves, an ex-army man, telephoned the constabulary and reported that he'd stabbed the couple with a ceremonial dagger. The pair suffered 6 knife wounds each. When law enforcement arrived at the scene, the couple's children were still asleep upstairs. On June the 17th of 2022, Reeves admitted to manslaughter but claimed diminished responsibility due to his deteriorating mental health and the drinking problems he'd developed since his Afghanistan tour. He was convicted of fatally attacking the Chappells and was given 2 life sentences with a minimum term of 38 years. Number 2. Courtney and Joseph Irby. On June the 14th of 2019, 35-year-old Joseph Irby rammed his car into his wife's vehicle in a parking lot after their divorce proceedings in Polk County, Florida. Joseph was apprehended on a domestic violence aggravated battery charge and let go the next day on a $10,000 bail. While he was behind bars, his assault rifle and handgun were taken by his wife, 32-year-old Courtney Irby, after she'd broken into his Lakeland apartment. Courtney turned the weapons into the police department. Law enforcement detained her and charged her with 2 counts of grand theft of a firearm and 1 count of armed burglary. She remained in custody for 6 days and was released on June the 20th on a $7,000 bond. Courtney's sister told the local news that the woman's actions were a result of her fear for her children's safety. When reports of her arrest sparked outrage, a state representative, Anna Escamani, requested that State Attorney Brian Haas not prosecute Courtney. She wrote that prosecuting her would set a scary precedent that if someone seeks help to escape abuse, they will be punished for it. On July the 3rd of 2019, Haas announced that Courtney was only charged with misdemeanor trespassing. He believed she was a domestic violence victim due to the car incident. He added that the case was a highly contested divorce that had escalated to the point where both parties were charged with crimes. Prosecutors determined that Courtney had committed burglary of a conveyance and unlawfully installed a tracking device in her husband's car. The additional pieces of evidence suggested that the wife had gone to substantial lengths to be labeled as a domestic violence victim and obtain an advantage in the highly emotional, contested divorce action. According to the case disposition, the state's attorney's office dropped all charges in the case in August of the same year. The estranged couple agreed to participate in a 12-month pre-trial intervention program. Before we move on to number 1, and while we're on the topic of small things that can do a lot of damage, we have our past release on when bee stings go wrong lined up for you next. Number 1. Ronald Duff. In Natrona, northeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a mentally disabled man was fatally beaten for spilling a bowl of soup on the night of October the 14th of 2012. The next day, the authorities discovered 60-year-old Ronald Duff unresponsive on a couch with 4 broken ribs, 20 injuries to his body and 30 to his head. According to the police, the victim's brother, 56-year-old Larry Duff, together with 22-year-old Jason Link, claimed that the man had fallen down the stairs of the home they shared in Harrison Township. Larry and Jason were arrested and initially charged with neglect of care of a dependent person. The pair later admitted that they'd punished Ronald because he was difficult to manage. The suspect said that the victim would expose himself, urinate and defecate on himself. The pair pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, and Larry was sent to prison for 3 to 6 years, while Jason was given a sentence of 22 to 44 months. Number 7. Bear Grylls. Adventurer and survival expert Bear Grylls almost died from a bee sting while filming for the 2019 show Treasure Island. The show, taking place on an island in the Pacific Ocean, saw participants compete to win £100,000. After the sting, Grylls was on the verge of anaphylactic shock when his crew intervened and saved his life by injecting him with an EpiPen. It wasn't the first time that the adventurer had had a severe reaction to bee venom. In May of 2015, he'd posted a photo to his Instagram, describing it as the moment he'd found out of his bee allergy. It showed him with both eyes swollen shut. In later interviews, Grylls did comment on the irony of him having survived the world's toughest environments and most dangerous creatures, only to almost succumb to a bee sting. Bees are flying insects belonging to the Apodea family that are best known for their role as pollinators and ability to produce honey, as well as for their sting. There are up to 20,000 bee species in the animal kingdom, and they range in size from 0.08 to 1.55 inches, which is slightly smaller than a golf tee. The hindermost parts of the bee's segmented body are modified into a barbed stinger, the insect's primary weapon. Only females possess stingers. There's a common misconception that bees die whenever they sting. It only happens if their target's skin is thick enough for their stinger to get lodged in. This is usually true when it comes to mammals, causing the bee to tear off pieces of its abdomen as it flies away. Bumblebees, queen honeybees, and many other species have smoother stingers with smaller barbs, enabling them to attack their targets repeatedly. Number 6. Eric Dahl. In September of 2017, a 48-year-old Massachusetts man died after sustaining multiple bee stings. At the time, Eric Dahl was reportedly blowing leaves at his Foxborough home. According to his wife, Dahl was in excellent health and had run 6 miles the day he was attacked. He'd been stung by bees before but suffered no significant complications, thus indicating he wasn't allergic. It's believed that as he was doing yard work, Dahl stepped on an underground nest and was swarmed. An ambulance took the father of 2 to Norwood Hospital, where he later died of a heart attack. Number 5. Lisa Marie Johnston. In 2019, an inmate at Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility in Michigan died from a bee sting she'd sustained in the prison's yard. 37-year-old Lisa Marie Johnston had been sent to the correctional facility for trafficking methamphetamine. On April the 24th, she was stung and suffered a severe allergic reaction. Johnston was treated at St. Joseph Mercy Health System and released after a couple of days. A few hours after her return to the prison, she went to get a medical checkup. Then, as she was helping a wheelchair-bound friend to the canteen, Johnston said that she was feeling dizzy. The woman then collapsed and, in spite of efforts to revive her, was pronounced dead at the scene. Bees can be found on every continent with the exception of Antarctica, in environments that feature insect-pollinated flowering plants. Beekeeping, done for the insect's honey, has been practiced by humans for millennia, going at least as far back as ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. The decline of wild bees is seen as an ongoing problem, since pollination is both commercially and ecologically important. Bees, who feed on pollen and nectar, enable fertilization and seed production by transferring pollen from a male part of a plant to the female part. Some bees are social, typically living in colonies called hives that have workers, drones, and the queen, while others are solitary. Honeybees fall into the former category but represent a small fraction of the overall bee types, with only about 8 recognized species. Number 4. Dead from bee sting therapy. In 2018, doctors from the Allergy Division of University Hospital in Madrid reported the case of a 55-year-old woman who died following bee sting therapy. She didn't have a history of asthma, heart disease, or other similar conditions, and hadn't previously suffered allergic reactions. Apitherapy involves the use of honeybee products, such as honey, propolis, pollen, or venom. One branch of the alternative medicine is live bee acupuncture. The idea, unsupported by evidence-based medicine, is that the induced inflammation triggers a strong anti-inflammatory response from the immune system. While it's meant to relax the muscles, researchers have deemed it unsafe and unadvisable. The Spanish woman had been going through live bee acupuncture once a month for 2 years before suffering a severe allergic response. She developed wheezing, shortness of breath, and sudden loss of consciousness. The woman was taken to a hospital where she died several weeks later from multiple organ failure. Apitherapy has known a number of celebrity supporters, most notably actress Gwyneth Paltrow, owner of lifestyle company Gloop. Actor Gerard Butler, however, related in an interview how he almost died from bee venom injections twice. He'd accidentally been injected with several times the recommended amount and had a severe allergic reaction, but a few days later tried the procedure again. Butler went into anaphylactic shock and had to be rushed to a hospital while feeling like his heart was about to explode. Bee stings are painful due to the polypeptide called melittin, which is the main component of their venom. Honeybees will seek out a potential threat to the hive and release alarm pheromones, which will cause others to converge to their position. The pheromones, which reportedly have a similar smell to that of a banana, do not dissipate or wash off quickly. This means that even if their target goes into water, the attack might resume when they get out. In some cases, a bee sting can trigger a severe and potentially fatal allergic reaction called anaphylaxis. It can manifest in the form of hives and swelling, including in the throat and tongue, vomiting or dizziness. Anaphylactic shock can result in low blood pressure, difficulty breathing, loss of consciousness, and cardiac arrest. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 50 to 100 people in the US die from bee stings each year. Number 3. Michael Christopher Hendricks. In 2011, a popular youth pastor from El Cajon, San Diego County, died following a severe reaction to a bee sting. 26-year-old Michael Christopher Hendricks was attempting an abatement in Alpine on April the 11th. According to the senior pastor at his fellowship, Hendricks had a heart for bees and found it soothing to be around them. Knowing they're under threat, he would reportedly attempt to remove bees from areas with an infestation without killing them. The pastor went on to say that Hendricks was highly regarded in the Christian community and beloved by the youth with whom he worked. It's believed that he was stung after one or more insects had made it past his beekeeping suit. Hendricks was rushed to a hospital where he fell into a coma and passed away 8 days after he was stung. Number 2. Kate Johnston. In 2017, a teenager from Western Australia had a brush with death as a result of a bee sting. 17-year-old Kate Johnston from Esperance had felt a prick on her hand before she got into her car and started driving to town. Johnston didn't think much of it at first. Within 10 minutes, she started itching all over and, upon looking in her rearview mirror, noticed that her head and lips had swollen. The teenager, who knew she was allergic, started looking for her EpiPen. Johnston then realized that she'd forgotten to put back the EpiPen after cleaning her car. She was several miles from town and in no condition to drive back. Her chest felt tight and she had trouble breathing. The teenager called a friend who met her on the side of the road. She injected her with the adrenaline before taking her to the hospital, where she received further treatment. Doctors would later tell Johnston that her friend's intervention had been life-saving. Preventing a sting can include, among others, proper management of food and beverages, not wearing brightly colored clothes or floral patterns, and avoiding perfumes or colognes, as they may attract bees. You should also always have nests near your home removed by a professional. If one or more bees are close, calmly walk away from the area and don't swat at them. If you've been stung, the first phase in treatment involves the removal of the stinger, followed by the application of a cold compress for the pain and a steroid cream to manage itching. Neutralizing the acidic venom has historically been tried through salt, baking soda, onion, tomato, toothpaste, garlic, ammonia-based substances, or even copper coins. Their overall efficiency, however, remains scientifically questionable, and ice generally acts as the best relief. People who know they're highly allergic should carry epinephrine in the form of a self-injectable EpiPen to treat anaphylactic shock. Otherwise, anaphylaxis should be regarded as a medical emergency. Number 1. Graham Williamson. In 2003, while cutting the grass at his home near Solihull, England, a man was stung by a bee and went into anaphylactic shock. Graham Williamson stood at 6 feet 5 inches and weighed close to 240 pounds. Due to his imposing stature, the 47-year-old computer company director was nicknamed Hulk by his friends. It's likely that he wasn't aware of his severe bee allergy, as he didn't have epinephrine injections readily available at his home. He collapsed and stopped breathing after he was stung on the foot while working in his back garden. Several neighbors helped Williamson's wife move him as she tried to resuscitate him. He was taken to Solihull Hospital in critical condition. His wife and 3 children held vigil at the hospital as doctors had sedated Williamson. In an attempt to give his body time to recover, there was some hope when his kidneys started functioning again, but unfortunately, Williams passed away without ever regaining consciousness. Thanks for watching. Would you rather pay a $1,000 fine or spend a week in jail? Let us know in the comments section below.